want to thank you all for having me out today. Rachel, everybody here. We traveled from the other side of the state, and we are just excited to be here to meet you guys and to do whatever we can to pass on tips. We are fairly new homesteaders. I'm always I'll admit, a little intimidated. I mean, it's intimidating to say what I think a homesteader should be doing when you've got a gentleman that knows nothing but homesteading and he's 84 years old. You get that look, So, it's that sort of. But surprisingly, new homesteaders are teaching older homesteaders newer things. I live in a community now where no one but us and one other family practically has internet. So a lot of times these old timers, you're doing things or you're hearing things or you're reading things, GMOs, organic gardening. Once they listen to you just a hair or they try your method once, you're not so crazy. So that's a good thing. So there is a transition in homesteading. Just to give a little background about myself, just so you kind of know what we're doing. I'm originally from Knoxville, born and raised, UT Hospital, all the way up down through there. And like many folks nowadays, I didn't grow up on a farm. No bones about it. Didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up around old generations though. And I, like Misty or anybody else, we're doing all these things in front of you, but baby, get out of the kitchen, we don't want you to get hurt. So, you press forward and grew up in West Knoxville when West Knoxville was called Concord and there was nothing there. So it was rural in life, but again, the setting was very different than probably a farm like this. So pressing forward, I went to the University of Tennessee and got married and had babies and whatnot. And just to put it real short and sweet, I'm not real sure specifically, I call it my Great Awakening. A couple of years ago, several years ago, I walked out on my back porch and I realized if I had to be self-sufficient for my 3 children, could I do it? The answer was no. I had a concept of gardening. I had a beautiful landscape. I had the prettiest crepe myrtles in the neighborhood, okay? But could I be self-sufficient? And I don't know. I don't know if it's because of losing a grandparent. I don't know if it's because of the economic situations that the country has faced. I think it's a collaboration of things, but mainly I'm going to tell you, I think it was God saying, you better pay attention. So from that point forward, we decided to, I did, and I spoke with my sweet husband here, and I thought he was going to think I'm crazy, and he didn't think I was crazy, so that was positive. So we pressed forward with an urban homestead. We pressed forward with, my main thing was, there's only so much I can do, so what are those things, first and foremost, and if I can't do all of these things that I think I should be doing, what skills can I learn in the setting that I'm in? So that's where we pressed forward. Taught myself how to can, grew up around canning. I can't tell you how many stories of endless canning that I witnessed. But did I know how to can, green beans? Nope. So I went to Walmart, bought the ball canning book, and I made myself learn how to can, which fully transitioned over into self-defense, baking, cast iron, wood cooking. It's just an endless sea of skills. That's what homesteading to me is about. Most people say, well, it's growing up around your papa on the farm. Yes, and there's a big movement for things with the homesteading movement. I don't have a problem with that. You got to have stuff. But at the end of the day, is the stuff going to make you a good homesteader? I'm finding out real quick that's no. So we're just going to talk about basically a lot of folks. I am on Facebook, I am on YouTube, and my whole deal is taking folks along on our journey to show them, not old Fred that lives down behind me, but the newer folks, what it encompasses, because people want to know. People want to know. They want to know, they want to do, they don't know where to go to, so they turn to YouTube, they turn to, Misty Prepper, they turn to different things like that, because the folks that they have memories of doing these things is no longer around, and so that's where they're going to. So, long story short, so we started urban homesteading, if you want to call it. That's the chic thing we call it. And, we went from, the first thing we did was to develop a very large garden, and you can do a lot in the neighborhood. Don't let anybody tell you that. I know a lot of you here probably have more acreage than I do, and you're like, okay. But it's true, because it's important to stress that, because even if you're already on a farm and you're totally doing everything that people dream of doing, there's going to be people asking you questions. They're going to want to know how they can transition or what they can do. That's what I did. That's what I went to the people that I knew. I said, help me. What do we need to do? If you were me, how would you do it and on what scale? So we started out with gardening. We ended up having a 1,000 square foot garden in a backyard in the neighborhood. That's not a big garden to what we do now, but that's a pretty big garden. You can get a lot of self-sufficiency out of 1,000 square feet if you're doing things right. It turned into composting, fruit trees, herbs. We could have chickens where we lived. So, and that's what you have. If you are in a neighborhood, I have to be politically correct and tell you that you should check your code, okay? And which you should. I mean, because the reality is you don't want to take something on and then you are told you have to be rid of it. That's not fair to the sweet hens. So, because you probably can't have a rooster. But we eventually made the jump to moving to the country. And so that's what I'm going to go over today, because the main questions that I get is, how did you go from urban to country? And just, a flurry of questions. So I kind of just went through and thought about, wrote down what are my most common questions. Honestly, the approach that I'm going to tell you in a fast form, because all of these are big subjects, is any woman that's ever had a baby will agree that the first time you go through a whole pregnancy, there are many things that no one told you was going to happen. And you go through that process, or you go, wish I'd have known that was going to happen. So it's the same thing here. You're going from city to serious serious country life. It's a very big move. You know, you may be cute in your cowboy boots, but when you get up there, it's way different. So, trust me when I tell you, this is going to do this.
Your cowboy boots, huh?
Yeah, those cowboy boots look cute down there on Tennessee Boulevard, but it ain't the same up on the mountain. So, yeah. All right, so the thing that you have to think about first, and I've got about 2 photos just to kind of go with each thing here, if I can get it rolling good. Thanks to my 15-year-old, he was my genius. What are your goals? Why do you want a homestead? Everybody's answer is different. Nobody is the same. Your goals are different. Your likes are different. You gravitate to certain animals. Are you just tired of the city? Maybe you're being very successful on an urban homestead, and you want to go bigger. Thank the Lord, that was pretty much where we ended up being. It just got to the point where this is working so well, and we love this so much, and that is going great, and look what my kids can do, and that we just wanted to go big or go home, and we continue that path. But are you trying to get back to your roots? Are you trying to develop skills? I will tell you that I think that skills are the #1 thing with homesteading, if you really think about it, but a lot of those things can be learned in an urban setting. But if you want to go big, again, you can't probably milk a cow with the HOA. It might be a problem. So you may want to go forth. So think about that. What are your goals? One of the best homesteaders I know, she lives out in Muddy Pond, out way past Nashville. And she's been doing this. She comes from Knoxville, ironically, and she moved out there, and she will look at me dead in the face if I start talking about something. And she'll go, what's your goal? And that just brings me home to say, maybe I shouldn't do that yet, or rethink this, or she brings it home to what are your goals. That's simple, but that's #1. The next thing I'm going to talk about, so that we had what are your goals, and I'm going to mess with this. So for me, I wanted to expand on gardening, and I wanted to expand on poultry. And I wanted roosters. I like having roosters on my farm. Most folks do not. You know, in some ways they find them intimidating or whatnot, and they can have their issues. You can handle that. But I wanted to expand on that, so that was a big bonus for us in terms of moving from the city to the country, and that is Boss Hog, by the way. That is Boss Hog. The next thing you need to think about, what is this hot mess? I know. When you decide to leave the city or wherever you're currently living, and we're going out, we're going to the sticks, okay? We're getting out. You better think about, number one, do you still have a job that you have to drive to? Drive can get really old really fast. Do you have a child maybe that has special needs? Do you have medical needs? Are you going to have to be going back to the doctor a lot? Do you homeschool? Are you affiliated with the homeschool co-op? This was my old job. So that's why I couldn't think of, let's just show my old picture. I'm a graduate gemologist and was a television, gemstone and jewelry salesperson for jewelry television in Knoxville. So that's my old life. It's changed a lot. So your job, I mean, are you going to be driving 60 miles back and forth every day? If you're milking a cow and you're tending to the chickens, because you're taking on that responsibility, okay, that stuff's coming. It's not going to, no one else is going to do it for you. That 1 hour drive back and forth to work every day becomes an issue. So think about proximity, think about things like that. Folks don't think about that until they're in it, and then, they've really got to deal with that. The next thing that I'm going to talk to you about, this is my son, big in piano, he's great. For your children, if there's things that your children do in a certain area, and most moms are not going to give up certain things for the kids, that's going to stick. You have to think about driving those kids and those teenagers. So that's what we do there. I know it's little, I'm sorry. He's mean. When you move anywhere, especially to a rural area, or anywhere, please do your homework in terms of safety. People don't think about that. We had a deal lined up with the most beautiful farmhouse, acreage farm, the whole 9 yards, and something said, maybe you should get on Watchdog, just research the area. Had a rapist 1 mile down the road. No. I think that goes without saying. Know what's around you, know the precautions that you have to take in terms of safety. Who's around you? What do your neighbors do? Is there something environmental that you don't want to be next to, that maybe you didn't even know was there, or something's going on, that may be a health issue for you or your children? Lots of stories about different things about that, but we'll hold off. So I tell people, please research the area. You would be surprised what you find. And there's a reason. If you found the perfect place and something's down the road and they're so bummed out and they just don't want to give it up, I'm sorry, that's a sign saying don't do it. So that's my personal, keep looking. All right, the next big thing, which is where a lot of people start this type of communication with you, is you better get land. What are your resources? Well, I say go with those first three first, and then go to when you leave and you move up to the mountain, like we did. What resources do you need for different reasons? We can talk about off-grid living. We can talk about the grid going down and all these things. But the reality is do you have resources to help you even when the grid is up? Do you have a pond? How are you going to water your animals? Do you have perhaps a spring? Are you near a larger water source? If you're going to switch to wood heat, do you have access to woods? Things of that nature. I can tell you that moving from Knoxville up to the mountain area, that even though we are on the grid in terms of having electricity, that's only about 50% of the time in the winter. So, even though I am connected to the grid, I have to be dependent upon wood heat. You're going to hate your life there if you don't. Propane is your option, but when you're paying $3.99 a gallon, no, it's not. So you learn real quick that your resources play a major deal in that. Another thing that goes along with that is when you're looking at a property, as we found out even later on, if you already have a barn, small barn, a shed that you can convert, fencing, different things like that you think, oh, I'll just add that. Well, you'll add that and this and that and that and that and that $20,000 later too, but if you have things that you already, maybe you like the property and you've got a few resources working out for you, and you've got a barn and you've got a coop, that's really important if you're going to be adding livestock to your area. So we went to safety. We're talking about resources. I'm telling you, water's really a big deal. I mean, you can't live without it, right? So that's a no-brainer for most of you all. You know this already. But having that, whether it's a well, spring, creek, of some source at a minimum that can help you in a crisis situation is going to be great. This has been the best thing we've added to our homestead besides our dairy cow. I have to say that about her. Wasn't cheap to add to the house. The house originally was with a wood stove. They pulled it and went to propane. We had to rely on the propane, which in a sense we still kind of do. And once I went through 2 winters ago with that, never again. Never again. This is our source right here. And she will knock you out the front door. So not only are you going to be toasty warm, you got to work for it, you got to work for your wood, but this is going to help you in a secondary skill, which we'll talk about, which is an obvious thing, which is going to be, you're going to be cooking on it. And you can't replace that skill. People, that's a lost art. Misty can, we have seen that with Miss Misty. The next thing we'll talk about, which is pretty general, which is a shock, which you can tell I'm not exactly a decompressed person, so slowing down is very difficult. It's going to force you to slow down. In terms of my health has improved tenfold simply by taking on this lifestyle. Yes, I wear myself out, and my knees may hurt a little bit in the evening, but your whole life shifts to a slow down, to a time going back to where my stress level, things I stress about are not what I stressed about in Knoxville. And so I find myself, we're healthier people. My kids are healthier just by taking on this type of lifestyle. So that's going to be great for you. I mean, that's pretty nice. You know, farms and flowers and goats and, you know, snuggling up with the Great Pyrenees. That's a good deal. That's a good deal. The next thing you need to know, which is a no-brainer, even whether you homestead or not, it's easy to go, I know this. You must think ahead. We are 30 miles from the nearest Walmart. That's no lie. You run out of cat food, you've got to travel to get your cat food. There's no Weigels down the road. There's nothing around us. We don't even have a stop. We have a stop sign. That's it. We don't have and a flashing light. So you just need to know already that this situation right here of some sort is going to happen. I don't know how it affected West Tennessee this year, but the ice storm that hit us in February was from Cookeville down to Crossville and up down through the mountains was crippling. I mean, crippling. I mean, people died. So we know that, and so we went through that. If you go through one situation like that, it just drives the point home. Be sure you have the things that you know you need on hand. Don't wait. I know we all do it, but it's true. Have your cat food, have your medicine. If these things are something that you run out of, make sure you know how to make them or duplicate them in some natural way at home on your own. That goes back to your skill set. Because you're not driving in that. It's not pretty. It wasn't fun to play in. We had no electricity, and you were falling the minute you hit the ice with this type of situation this year. So think about that. Goes back to be prepared. This goes back to your skill set too. That's my sauerkraut. So it's really nice to go out to say, okay, I didn't go to the grocery store and I can't get out today, and da-da-da-da-da. And you go, well, let's see what I've got in my pantry. So think about those things. I know Mama told you that, but it's just it can get really bad. So think about those things. That goes for your animals, your kids, your medications, wood. You cannot have enough wood. No.
Yes, you twice.
Just keep chopping. Don't stop. Don't stop. You just keep going. Know your neighbors. Bless his heart. This is one of our neighbors on the very far back around from us, and we don't have a tractor currently. That's something we are working towards. As you know, they're not cheap, and so that's a goal. And so we do a little, bartering. He comes and he'll turn our land for a dozen eggs. So, because he loves to help everybody out. So, knowing your neighbors. A lot of people are intimidated when they move from city. It's true. Moving from city to a rural community that's tight knit. It's hard to break into that bubble. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but the second they really truly know that you're trying and that you're doing, they will be your best friend. It has been life-changing for my children to be around folks like this. So know your neighbors, get to know them, work on a sense of community with them. Yeah, you're going to be the city kid. They're going to make fun of you a little bit. That's okay. You show them how to cover their potatoes with straw and all the cool City Life organic stuff. And when those potatoes come up and they've got a better harvest than they did last year, they're going to be bringing apple butter and all kinds of good stuff. So, and reciprocate all of those things. Don't be afraid. This is some of our other neighbors who built our barn. It was one man, one woman, and their 2 daughters in skirts. So they got the job done. So know your neighbors. It's pretty good. The next thing I want to talk about as we're moving along, go at your own pace. I will have 1,000 chickens if I don't stop. So, go, but you have to go at a slow pace. If having 4 hens is all you start with, that is fantastic. Because you can overwhelm yourself very, very quickly. Or you may have a lot of things going on that's going really well, and oh, the cow hits you in the face and you break your nose and you're in bed for 2 weeks. Or, oh, you fell out by the pond and broke your foot. No, who's going to take, whatever. Those things will happen. So you have to have a level of manageability in terms of what is your livestock and your animals, your garden. And that's what the gentleman behind me, 84 years old, he'll come up and he'll go, "You're killing yourself, aren't you?" He'll make fun of me. And he's like, "I'm telling you, you need to slow it down just a little bit." And it's not because he doesn't think we can or cannot do it. It's that warning of, don't overwhelm yourself. That's what they're going to tell you. The next thing I want to talk about, which is a no-brainer, I'm telling you, the whole thing, it's beautiful how this whole discussion comes back to one thing, and that is working your skills. Pick a few skills. And that's starting in an urban life, if you're transitioning. Get really good at a couple of things in an urban setting, so when you move up there, you already know how to do it. You're not going to be scrounging how to make a teepee, or scrounging on where am I going to put my compost, or scrounging to, is my hen egg, could she be egg bound? What do I do? If you've already tried to deal with these smaller scale issues, well, egg bound is not small, but I'm just saying, if you already know how to deal with 4 chickens and the issues that come with 4 chickens, you're going to automatically identify it when you're up there, and you've got to identify, is my cow bred, and is my solar panels working right, or, just these larger issues. So work on those skills. Work on things like making bread. That is an art. I'm sorry. If your woman can make a killer loaf of bread and kiss her face off, because I'm telling you, that is serious, day after day after day. And I'm going to be ugly, and I don't mean to. I'm not talking about your bread machine. I'm talking about if she's working that dough, if she knows how to finesse it, and she's got cast iron, and she knows the right heat, and I'm telling you, it is how to make it rise. It is mind-blowing.
You're right.
Making bread alone is a major, I'm envious. Sometimes I'm pretty decent at it, but there's some folks, ladies that I know, I'm just like, oh, how do you do it? And they say, every day, make bread. Don't stop. And even when you do that, you're going to have a day where you make a brick and you throw it at your husband. Whatever. But, keep working that. So that's a good thing. This goes back with skills. Obviously, I'm not doing the work in terms of hatching the eggs, but if you can, getting your kids to work with an incubator and some baby chicks. Hey, kids aren't doing it in the city. Sorry, they're not. They're just not. And I know that sounds harsh. 1 in 1,000. 1 in, that's no, it's not right either. But, that's mind-blowing to people. I wouldn't think so. I would never know that. But that knowing how to work the incubator, what to look for, the 21-day period, what is going on in here, how to candle, when does it start pipping, when does it start unzipping, okay, now it's hatched, okay, now what do I do, how long does it sit in there, do I transition it, then how do I feed it, then you go to phase 2 of skill set 2, which is raising baby chicks. That's big. Work on your skills. All right. Which goes to kid involvement. This little rascal's here with me today, so I put him here. This is my youngest of 3 boys. And getting them involved in anything we could has been amazing. We do homeschool our children, so it does help. You don't have to homeschool your kids in order to get them involved with your farm, but that is part of their life. Animal husbandry, working with dogs, hatching baby chicks, canning, making bread, catching catfish now and skinning them and doing all kinds of different things. Get your children involved. It really is life-changing for them. He planted all my potatoes. This is my peanut butter. And he can plant some potatoes. This was year before last. He's very proud of that picture. So he did a good job. You won't have internet. Depending on, if you're looking at a specific property and your life revolves around a lot of internet, know what your service is. I didn't talk about this on one of my videos, and I kicked myself when I was done because I went, how did I avoid that? We've gone from all of these different providers, and you can spend thousands, you think I'm lying, hundreds of dollars per month, really quickly push the thousands for that. I'm sorry to tell you. I mean, some folks though, they like be in this rural area, and I'm like, how do you have DSL? Who do you know? You know what? And we're reliant right now on HughesNet. We switched from Verizon to HughesNet, and it's working really well for us where we are at. But if the wind blows in a weird direction in your way, it may not. So just investigate that. If you're just doing a little bit of Facebook here and there, or checking your maybe your bank account or email twice a week or whatever, it may not be a big deal to you. But if you are needing internet, homeschooling kids, checking your Facebook, doing all these things, trust me, you will need to know that. You need to know how to operate a firearm. Ladies, you need to know how to operate a firearm really well. People don't want to talk about this issue now. I'm not going to get political about it. You don't want me to. But it is imperative that you know, regardless of where you live, how to operate a firearm. If you're living out in perhaps where we live, it's going to take, if your phone service is working that day because there's no fog or no wind, and you can get cell service, that's 50-50. And your neighbor, the only neighbor that you can spot back there has gone to the store, it's not home, something happens. You need to, at a minimum, understand how to load a firearm, operate a firearm. You need to understand how it recoils, and you need to understand sound. You're not going to have headgear on. You're not going to be with your cute little pink stuff on, shooting. And predators come in all forms, 2-legged, 4-legged, and no-legged, where you're at. Okay, so it's a fact. So, in terms of, are you going to have a hearing permit? That's your business. But it is imperative, you will sometime or another be operating one, guaranteed. So, we thought that would be a picture. So, and I wouldn't be, that's not the type of firearm I'm talking about. Understand a shotgun. Most women don't understand what a shotgun feels like. Maybe some of you out here on the farm do, that's great, I know that. But girls coming from the city, they might have been cute at the range shooting a 38 with their boyfriend. That's not what that feels like. So, just know that. Self-defense continues in all forms. I'm a black belt in Israeli Krav Maga, and that probably is what brought forth that's when I was in my last belt, black, but that probably is what brought forth my awareness with gun training. And these men are going to literally drag you around and beat you down on purpose and exactly tell you what's going to be happening to you in a crisis situation. And it is, as a woman, I'm not talking about you guys that wrestled and watch WWF and you all know all this cool stuff, okay? Women have an issue in terms of they don't feel like they have the ability, and should they protect themselves? That's not what you're supposed to do. So learn to protect yourself and don't be afraid to. So, transportation. God love them. We have some neighbors that drive I don't have a problem with a Prius, but you can't hold strong on a Prius. So if you're going to get a lot of, if you're going to be transitioning to, this type of lifestyle, you might want to consider getting a truck or something like that. Maybe you already have one, that's good. It's not going to have good gas mileage, we know. But in a pinch, you're not going to be reliant on the neighbor's truck. You're going to have your own source of transportation to help you out. I'm not sure that's what I really mean, but you get the point. That's cool. That's really cool. That's really cool. So know that. We're going to wrap it up soon. Know your restrictions. First question, besides safety. There are some people that don't like these type of dogs. They bark a lot. She means well though. That's our coonhound, Dolly. And even though, so you need to understand, you don't want to move somewhere where you have a certain restriction against dogs barking, or what if you need a what if you need an LGD? What if you have a coyote problem, but you have restrictions in terms of barking? You have a problem. I mean, you can't have that, and so you're going to be facing issues. So understand your restrictions of your area. We had to put her there because she doesn't bark near as much as she used to. Again, restrictions. Can you have chickens? These are my ducklings, but can you have a dairy cow? If you live in another state, what is your situation on raw milk? So if you're in West Virginia, it's going to be a whole lot different than Tennessee. So understand, because some people go, I'm going to get a dairy cow and I'm going to do these things and I'll sell my milk. No, you're not. So understand what you're getting into. There's a lot of questions with all of these things. Last but not least, you'll be rid of me. Please be safe on your farm. This is nothing to mess with, okay? Right now, this is a current personal heated issue for me because I was severely injured in February by her. She didn't mean to. She's a cow. She thought that flake of hay was mighty fine. And I was no problem for her in terms of knocking across the barn to get it. That was my fault. That was my naivete. I didn't plan. I didn't follow the protocol. I was in a hurry. The wind was rocking the barn. I was trying to get back inside, and boom, life-changing. People do not understand the life force, and you look at these things and you go, aren't they so cute? She's just chewing. No. This is Belle. She's our milking cow. She's a Holstein Jersey, and she is a dog. Okay, this is her heifer, new heifer, and newer heifer. She's bred again. But a rooster's going to flog you. A cow may charge you. Pig may knock you down, chew your foot off. I don't know. I'm joking, but I mean, people just go, oh, I'm going to get this, and they don't know. I mean, somebody trying to milk a cow without a halter, no. Come on. So understand that this is serious business. They are animals. You are not on the same they're not on the same psychosis as you. They want to eat. They have their instincts. You're just that person that provides it. They're going to get what they need to get. So a lot of folks are, I'm advising some folks in this area right now, and you, I want to get a cow. And is this a good price? And I'm like, stop. Do you understand? And they don't. And so it's making them think a little bit longer. Do you have proper management? Like, do you have the right setup for these animals too? Because if you don't have the proper setup and they're not managed well, it's obvious they could become more aggressive. You're no problem for them. So think about that. Next thing and last is obviously tools. This is my other neighbor. I mean, he is just, they bale all of our hay for us. For like, what I took them, they bring us steaks and bale our hay and all of these things, and they expect nothing in return. We do reciprocate a lot. But that's the type of neighbor you want to crack into, not because they do stuff for you, but because they're there for you. But he'll be the first to tell you about many stories about being injured on the tractor, running the tiller, the cow that broke his nose also, or whatever. So just know that there are a lot of safety precautions that you need to take as well. That's about it. I'm sure that I can pull your mind up a little bit, hopefully. That make you think. Is there any questions that I can take? Anything that, you'd like to ask in terms of our transition or anything like that, or something you have? The thing is if you guys have already transitioned and all of this stuff, maybe I hit on something that, you haven't thought about advising someone else to do or not. We just assume that you're doing it, that they know too, maybe not. So if not, we'll go ahead and do the drawing for the coffee cups.
No, one thing you're talking about, having skill sets before you come. Now, I didn't get my skill sets until I moved out as a teenager.
Right.
You're right about sharing, because we have a neighbor, and I taught her to do some sewing, and she's bright, she could have done it on her own, but also canning. And but as a result of being younger, they have helped the old people on the mountain too.
Yeah.
Different things. And and she was so she doesn't know how to do a lot of stuff, but her daughter works as an aide for older people. So she's learned stuff, and then she'll bring it to her mother, and then her mother will come over and talk to me, and we do that with the garden, we do different things. And so really, to me, the homesteading, one of the important things is to try to build some relationships.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing that, I joked that one of these gentlemen came to me and he asked me a very specific question. He said, I'm coming to you because I think you might be the person that knows. And it was kind of it's nothing bad or anything, it's private. But the loyalty and trust builds, that is, old style. People that have lived on the mountain for, all of their life. They owned half of it at one time. And where you go down here and do this, well, that's where they raised sorghum, and they can tell you that's where they ran their mules, and that's where Daddy down the road, we had an acre of strawberries. Right? Can you see down there? We had those people. They're hard to crack sometimes. It's just the way they are. That's not a bad thing. I think being guarded is probably the word. But once that, just work with them and be you and be a good neighbor. They're just trying to know, who are you? And, I think it's beneficial in all realms, younger generations to older, different educations and walks of life this man can do anything. Does he have a formal college education? But I'd sit down and talk. I can go to him and ask him anything, definitely, and that's because of life skills. And so when they came to us and we're like, could you help? Do you know? I was like, I couldn't get my head out the door because I was so excited. I was like, he asked for my help, sort of thing. It's wonderful, and it's good for your kids to see too. Grandbabies, get those grandbabies out there. So you want to pick those? Well, I appreciate y'all coming out. This has been great.
Quick question.
Yes.
So did one of y'all keep your career to keep it going? Okay.
I was already, I worked until 2008. We were already in transition for me to be a stay-at-home mom to homeschool.
Right.
The economy went ahead and made that decision for me, which at the time was a little devastating. You're like, this was not my plan, this is not my timing. That helped the transition. This was our personal experience. No, he has kept, I'm the farmer I'm the homesteader. He helps, he's the brawn. The children help a lot. But when he's working 5 a.m. to 8 o'clock at night right now, it's me and my oldest boy. Well, the younger two.
He's a commuter?
He does commute. We moved to an area that is actually brought him closer to his job.
Oh, okay.
And that worked for us. He was driving 100 miles a day. So to go, hey, we can get closer, that was actually in our situation a benefit. But I would not tell you to go it just depends on everybody's, it's subjective, I will tell you, and I'm only coming from my place only, because I get this question a lot. Most homesteaders that I have talked to, young, new, older, in a lot of situations, somebody is working outside of the farm. Healthcare, money, trying to build a retirement of some sort. I mean, it's somebody, I did have somebody come to me and they really expected, they were just gonna quit their job, move to nowhere, and they were gonna make money off eggs. I'm like,
You're like,
if you want to make, okay, I'm not, and I don't mean that, it's just, it's like, no, there is